Okay. Good evening and welcome to this public workshop of the Board of Education. I am Board President Joanna Tobin. Tonight, the board will learn more from Superintendent George Arlotto and AACPS staff on the readiness of students for kindergarten. This workshop will cover a variety of aspects related to skills that enable children to successfully begin their school experience. This workshop is open to the public, however, no public testimony will be taken. This workshop is being broadcast live on AACPS TV and on AACPS YouTube channel. Some of our board members are running late. I know in particular Ms. Corkadell hopes to join us this evening if she can make it. Thank you for joining us and happy Valentine's Day. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board. We are delighted to spend some time with you this evening to talk about kindergarten readiness. You have two amazing people in front of you that will introduce themselves. They've got some information to share, and then we're glad to answer questions. Mrs. Batten.
Thank you. President Tobin, Vice President Silkworth, Dr. Arlotto, and members of the board. Good evening. I am Michelle Batten, Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction. I am joined by my colleague who will introduce himself.
Hi, good evening. Kevin Wajek. I am the Director of Instruction for Academics.
Mrs. Patricia Seno, Coordinator of Early Childhood Education and School Readiness, is unable to be with us this evening. We are here to provide an overview of kindergarten readiness. Following the presentation, we will answer questions you may have and offer clarification about the content we have shared. What is kindergarten readiness? Kindergarten readiness is the term generally used to refer to the knowledge, skills, and behaviors that enable children to participate and succeed when they begin school. These skills and behaviors set the stage for future learning and overall success because they enable the student to be ready for the instruction they will receive in the kindergarten classroom. The Maryland State Department of Education and Ready at 5 define kindergarten readiness as the foundational skills needed for school, career, and life. These skills and behaviors are categorized into learning domains, all of which are taught and assessed in school. Research has shown that the most critical years for brain development are from prenatal to age 5. We know there are children in Maryland and Anne Arundel County who face obstacles and barriers that impede their optimal learning and development. Communities experiencing adversity have limited access to resources and may not be able to provide the opportunities children require to enter kindergarten fully ready to learn. An assessment of kindergarten readiness provides vital information about the knowledge, skills, and behaviors of children entering kindergarten classrooms. Knowing that all students enter kindergarten at different levels of readiness, this data provides a clear snapshot that allows our teachers to differentiate in classrooms. Aligning with the mission to provide developmentally appropriate early childhood programming, educating the whole child. AACPS uses kindergarten readiness data to provide teachers with rich information about each child's knowledge, skills, abilities, and learning needs. The data helps teachers monitor student progress toward the achievement of Maryland standards and better communicate with family members about their child and suggest ways to support their child's development at home. AACPS also works with stakeholders at the community and state levels to gain important information about how well prepared our children are for kindergarten. This valuable information enables all stakeholders to make well-informed programmatic, policy, and funding decisions to ensure that all children are fully prepared for kindergarten and school success. The data is also used to inform professional development, curricular enhancements, and appropriate transition practices. As part of the kindergarten registration process, families are asked to self-report prior care experiences. The prior care experiences refers to the year before kindergarten. MSDE provides 6 options for families to choose from to report prior care. They are childcare defined as a licensed facility which serves children 6 weeks to 5 years of age. family childcare defined as a licensed childcare facility based in the provider's home. Head Start is defined as a federally funded program under the Department of Health, which serves families at or below the federal poverty income level. Home informal care is defined as a setting in which the child is at home with a relative or in an unlicensed childcare setting. Non-public nursery school, defined as a licensed facility that typically serves children ages 2 to 5. And pre-K refers to a public school or state-funded private vendor program for children who are 4 years of age. High-quality early learning experiences can have a positive impact on a child's school readiness and future success in school. This is especially important for children with disabilities, children who are English learners, and children who live in low-income households. Attending a high-quality early learning program can lead to improved educational outcomes and increased behavioral and social competencies.
Assessments are one of the most valuable tools we have to determine how our learners are faring and to plan for instruction to meet individual student needs. Using data to inform decision-making is associated with greater academic success and allows local school districts to monitor progress, help teachers make instructional decisions, and informs local district policies. To better achieve these goals, Maryland uses Ready for Kindergarten, R4K, Maryland's Early Childhood Comprehensive Assessment System, a single coordinated system for measuring the knowledge, skills, and behaviors, identifying the needs of young children. As part of the R4K assessment, all school districts in Maryland are required to administer the Kindergarten Readiness Assessment, the KRA. The KRA is a standardized assessment that is given between the first day of school and October 10. The Kindergarten Readiness Assessment is developmentally appropriate, an assessment tool administered to incoming public school kindergartners that measure specific skills and behaviors across 4 learning domains. Administered by kindergarten teachers at the start of the school year, the KRA looks at the knowledge, skills, and behaviors necessary to be successful in kindergarten. What are some of the skills and knowledge in each domain? In social foundations, the KRA assesses if children can identify and recognize emotions, resolve conflicts with others, persist at tasks, retain and apply information, solve problems, cooperate with others, and seek and gather new information. In literacy and language, kindergarten teachers use the KRA to determine a student's ability to demonstrate an understanding of spoken words and sounds, comprehend texts, communicate in a variety of situations, produce letter-like shapes and symbols to convey meaning, and use words acquired through conversations and shared reading experiences. In mathematics, children are assessed on their ability to identify number names and count to 20, identify small quantities, understand the concept of adding to and taking away from, sorting, classifying, and comparing objects, describing attributes, and identifying shapes. Finally, in the physical well-being and motor development domain, the KRA looks at children's readiness to use their large muscles to perform physical tasks, to use small muscles to perform fine motor skills, to play and learn, to demonstrate personal health and safety skills and tasks. The KRA relies on 3 types of tasks to measure kindergarten readiness in these domains. The tasks include performance tasks, observation of children's work and play, and selected response items. Direct performance tasks may include counting to tell how many, identifying beginning sounds, and comparing sets of objects. Observational rubric tasks may include holding a writing instrument, completing motor tasks, and answering questions about a story read to them. Selected response tasks require the students to indicate the correct answer when asked a question. Examples include identifying numerals and indicating how many are in a set. Each year, the Maryland State Department of Education releases a compiled statewide and local school system data on overall kindergarten readiness. This report includes average scale scores in each domain and overall readiness for student populations by gender, ethnicity and race, prior care setting, and for students receiving special services, including children with disabilities, English learners, and students who are direct certified. According to the USDA, direct certification is a process conducted by states and by local educational agencies to certify eligible children for free meals without the need for household application. There are 3 different levels of school readiness indicated by the KRA. Demonstrating readiness, a child demonstrates the foundational skills and behaviors that prepare them for curriculum based on kindergarten standards. Approaching readiness, a child exhibits some of the foundational skills and behaviors that prepare for curriculum based on kindergarten readiness. And emerging readiness, a child displays minimal foundational skills and behaviors that prepare them for curriculum based on kindergarten standards. When children whose readiness skills are approaching and/or emerging require differentiation within their instruction. This graph shows a comparison State of Maryland and AACPS KRA data for the 2018-19, 2019-2020, and 2021-2022 school years. It is important to note that the KRA was not given in the fall of 2020. AACPS has consistently scored within the state average. The Maryland State Department of Education released preliminary kindergarten readiness scores for the 2021-2022 school year, which demonstrated an overall decline in kindergarten readiness. Maryland's overall state results, as well as AACPS's results, reflect similar trends seen nationally. As a result of the learning disruptions caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, nationally, fewer students are demonstrating kindergarten readiness. Looking at AACPS's 2019 KRA data by race and ethnicity, of the more than 6,300 kindergartners in Anne Arundel County, 18% of the kindergarten population is African American, of which 34% demonstrate readiness. 18% of the kindergarten population is Hispanic, of which 27% demonstrate readiness. Comparatively, 53% of the total kindergarten population is white, of which 55% demonstrate readiness. African American and Hispanic children face some of the largest readiness gaps. In the fall of 2019, 10% of Anne Arundel County public school kindergartners received special education and related services through an individualized education program in their kindergarten classrooms. On average, children with disabilities are more likely to be at the emerging readiness level than their peers without a disability. 20% of the kindergartners with a disability demonstrated readiness, compared with 48% of their non-disabled peers. 17% of AACPS's English learners demonstrated the foundational skills and behaviors that are essential for kindergarten success, compared with 48% of English fluent kindergartners. This represents a difference of 32% between English learners and their English fluent peers. 30% of kindergarten students who are direct certified demonstrate kindergarten readiness, compared with 48% of students who are not direct certified. This represents an 18% difference along income lines. The data indicates that there is much work to be done to ensure that all children are given all available opportunities to succeed. The transition to kindergarten is an exciting time for children and their families. In communities across Anne Arundel County, young children are learning and building their school readiness skills in pre-K, in child care centers, in family child care homes, and Head Start programs. Early learning experiences have an impact on a child's school readiness, and AACPS is ready to support all students and families, both before and after beginning kindergarten. Here are some of the highlights of our work around kindergarten readiness. In this graph, you see highlighted the growth of kindergarten classrooms since 2012. The number of kindergarten classrooms is based on kindergarten enrollment. Since 2019, AACPS has seen a significant increase in the number of kindergarten students enrolled. This increase is also a result of our commitment to lower class size for our kindergarten students. A typical kindergarten classroom in AACPS has an average of 18 students. AACPS continues to make strategic investments to improve access to publicly funded pre-K programs by increasing availability in both public school classrooms and in community-based programs. This graph highlights the commitment of AACPS that has been made to expand our pre-kindergarten 4-year-old program since 2011. In 2019-2020, the KRA data shows that attending a publicly funded pre-K program in AACPS makes a difference. In this chart, you see the percentage of students based on parent-reported prior care experience who achieved demonstrating readiness on the KRA. Children enrolled in these pre-K programs the year prior to kindergarten are better prepared for school than those in home or informal care the year prior to starting kindergarten.
Our curriculum is designed with the whole child approach. It recognizes all aspects of a child's growth and development: intellectual, social, emotional, physical, and creative. Development of the foundational skills and how young children learn is critical to the assurance of greatness for each child's college and career readiness trajectory. Our young learners grow and thrive when given authentic and rich experiences. Our goal of teaching and learning in kindergarten is to ignite learning excitement and spark curiosity with confidence. Prepare children to be thinkers, reflecting about their world. Develop responsible, cooperative learners who gain, assimilate, and extend knowledge. Promote health and wellness, social skill development, and socialization opportunities through play. During the summer of 2021, AACPS offered a summer camp for entering pre-kindergarten 4-year-old students called Pre-K Kickoff. 20 students were enrolled in the Kickoff program, all of whom came from income-eligible families. Over half of these students also had an active IEP for specialized instruction. The students attended 2 days per week in either a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, Thursday cohort. AACPS also offered a summer program for students entering kindergarten called Pre-K Engagement. 97 students were enrolled and attended this summer program. 89% of the students enrolled in Pre-K Engagement summer camp came from families who were income eligible. The program ran at locations throughout AACPS Monday through Thursday. Classrooms in both programs were staffed by an early childhood certified teacher and at least one instructional assistant. Students were provided with transportation as well as breakfast and lunch. The focus of the camps was on social emotional development and early literacy and math skills. All instruction was hands-on and engaging with an emphasis on oral language development and play. Students enrolled in the camp were provided with a learning pack of materials to continue their learning journey at home. The learning pack also contained information for the families on how to use the materials. Anecdotal information from the program staff and receiving teachers shows that students enrolled in the camps entered school this fall with the social emotional skills needed to engage in pre-kindergarten or kindergarten program. Additionally, students in the Pre-K Kickoff program showed a 76% increase in the ability to recognize their name in print and a 22% increase in their ability to orally count to 10. Students enrolled in the Pre-K Engagement Camp showed a 52% increase in the area of letter identification and a 48% increase in the ability to make sets. We also wanted to share an example of a brochure provided by school counselors to distribute to families at enrollment or other orientation events. This brochure is from Woodburn Press. This brochure is specifically for kindergarten readiness and helps prepare students for building early literacy skills, writing, and math, as well as provide transition strategies for families. ACP also provides pre-kindergarten families with a brochure entitled The Year Before Kindergarten. This brochure offers suggestions and strategies for families to support the transition of their child to kindergarten, starting with the fall before kindergarten and ending with what to do to ensure a successful transition to kindergarten. This brochure can also be found on the Early Childhood Education website for families perhaps not in our pre-K program that are looking for information. ACPS also partners with the Anne Arundel County Public Library to promote the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten program. This program encourages families and caregivers to read 1,000 books with their children before they enter kindergarten. Reading aloud to children from birth helps strengthen language skills and build vocabulary, two important tools for learning to read. Policy Area 1 of Blueprints for Maryland's Future places an emphasis on kindergarten readiness with its focus on early childhood education. Under the direction of Blueprint for Maryland's Future, AACPS will establish a pre-kindergarten 3-year-old program using a mixed delivery model by partnering with approved community partners and as well as opening classrooms in our schools. Under Blueprint legislation, pre-kindergarten 3-year-old is full day and 5 days a week for a 180-day program with instruction that aligns to the Maryland Early Learning Standards. Students served will be from families at 300% of federal poverty guideline, with priority enrollment given to students with IEPs and children whose home language is not English. AACPS will also transition to offering only full-day pre-kindergarten 4-year-old programs. This work includes converting all existing half-day programs to full-day without a reduction in the number of students enrolled. ACPS will offer the same mixed delivery model to expand access to families. Student enrollment will be based on 3 tiers of income eligibility, with priority enrollment given to students with an IEP and students whose home language is not English. Both pre-kindergarten 3-year-old and 4-year-old classrooms will be staffed with 1 early childhood certified teacher and 1 teaching assistant. ACPS will also have the opportunity to expand Judith P. Hoyer Early Learning Hubs, more commonly known as Judy Centers, to more Title I schools. 2 Judy Centers currently serve the Belgrove and Georgetown East locations. Although each location is uniquely positioned to serve its individual community, all Judy Centers employ the 2-generational approach, which focuses on creating opportunities for and addressing the needs of children, parents, and families. Judy Centers ensure that children are ready for kindergarten by coordinating efforts among parents, providers, teachers, school districts, the local and state government, nonprofits, businesses, and other community partners. The Judy Centers work with a variety of partners to offer adult education, case management, child care assistance, developmental and health screenings, family engagement activities, parenting classes, and playgroups. Finally, Blueprint for Maryland's Future will expand community schools. Community schools address the whole child with a comprehensive focus on academics, social and emotional well-being, and pedagogical and developmental needs to ensure students are ready and able to learn. The community schools establish strategic partnerships with other community resources to promote student achievement, positive learning conditions, and the well-being of students by providing wraparound services. Services may include academic and language support, nutrition, medical, dental, and behavioral health care to children from birth to age 4, and in addition to the traditional elementary population. Thank you for your support of and interest in this important work. We would be pleased to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. That was a wonderful presentation, and I'm very grateful to you for the work to put that together. As is typical of, I believe, our workshop structure, I'm simply going to go around and ask questions. And perhaps each board member, if you can have 2 questions, and if it looks like there are additional questions that people have, we can do another round. But tonight, Ms. Ellis, you get to start things off.
Thank you. And yes, indeed, thank you for your presentation. This is a topic that I've been very interested in, and I was so glad that we got this on the calendar. So a couple of questions off the top of my head, and I may have another question after, but first of all, the brochures. I'm very interested in those and the fact that we're doing that, and I'm pleased that we're doing that. And I'm just wondering, are there opportunities to expand the reach of those? I know you said, for example, the kindergarten readiness brochure that's available or provided to families in our public pre-K, and then parents can access that resource, but parents might not know to access that resource. And I guess I don't know in the moment, and you probably don't either, what the process would be, to expand the reach on that, to identify families that have that need. But I guess it's more of a statement that I'm hoping that we're finding ways to do that.
And we leverage our partners in order to get that materials out into the communities and to those folks who are boots on the ground and working with our different families, the
Great.
agencies and organizations, so they have that information available to pass along as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. And in addition to that, I know when I was in the hospital and, I had a baby, and we would get all sorts of, a packet of information, and that 1,000 books before kindergarten that's just such an important thing for parents to know about and understand. And I know I was reading to my infants at 6 months old, and, and they actually do get a lot out of that. So do we connect with families in any way, provide information in the hospital through, just providing materials at birth?
We currently, certainly, as I said, mentioned giving it out to our different groups. Our infants and toddlers program oftentimes work with our caregivers directly in the hospital facility, so they're able to distribute that information. Several years ago, we did support an initiative where every family received a bag of books with lots of different information. At this point in time, that program has been put on pause, but certainly that was an avenue that we were able to get that information into the families right in the delivery room.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, I'm just thinking at the very least that brochure, just parents knowing that, because a lot of times I think kindergarten readiness is just a matter of parents knowing what their children, should be exposed to prior to. And then my other question is, can you talk a little bit about the process when a parent believes their child is ready a year before they are eligible by age for kindergarten?
Certainly. So if there are two different processes. One, it's early admission to kindergarten, and utilizing the timelines that have been given to us by MSDE, we have an opportunity over the summer for those parents that wish to pursue an early admission process, that we bring them in and we do assess them what would be expected on prior to kindergarten standards, those early learning standards. So it's not assessing what they would know by the end of kindergarten, but what would they be expected to know coming into kindergarten. So we do have that process. There are times where we have students who may be in a position where we're looking at a grade acceleration. And so they start the year in kindergarten, and we find that they are showing perhaps very way above average abilities. And so there is a different process in order to pursue a grade acceleration where the student would actually probably move from kindergarten into first grade.
And so my question is about the I guess the assessment that's used for let's say parent is having their child tested for early entrance into kindergarten. If I recall, in cases that I've reviewed, the standards are quite high. In other words, that child is expected to be, if I recall, based on the test numbers, that child is expected to come in basically at the high end of the class of students that they're trying to enroll with. Does that make sense? So
Yes.
why such a high standard? If, in other words, if that child is, let's say, a middle of the road kindergarten ready versus not ready, they need to wait a year. Why such high expectations?
So we are looking at establishing consistent criteria so that the measurement is the same is the same, so it is not considered arbitrary based on one's observation or interpretation of what they see from the child in their performance. So that allows us to standard set. We do use what you've probably seen in some of the reports you've received as stay nines. And so we look at students at the 7th stay nine. That's our benchmark for showing in those different testing categories or the subtest, where they are performing at what we would expect a student coming into kindergarten. So those are standardized norm reference tests that the vendor determines those set numbers. But then we also work with our instructional data team to also monitor students' performance too, to ensure our assessment process is following appropriate protocol, and that do we need to go back and make any adjustments or changes so that we are giving students that opportunity, but also maintaining some consistency as well.
You said a stay 9 of 7. Is that on a scale of, it goes up to 10?
To 9.
To 9. Okay, I guess I'm still having a trouble understanding why it wouldn't be a 5. In other words, this kid's coming in the middle of the pack in kindergarten instead of making them wait a year. That would still be standardized. Is that determined at the county level, that standard that they?
We work with our instructional data team, and
Okay.
we also involve not only our folks in curriculum instruction, but also team members from the Office of School Psychology that also are part of it in the second half of that assessment. So it is a joint joint decision as to making those stay nines as where we would see a student showing appropriate readiness to enter kindergarten.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Shawhan.
Thanks. Thank you so much for your presentation. Really appreciate it. I do have just a couple questions. I'll stick with just the two. For the pre-K 4 full day, we're moving from a half day to a full day. And so is there a chance to rest or to nap within that? When I had a 4-year-old, she would be off her nut if she didn't nap during the day. So I just wondered if that's something that occurs.
Thank you for the question. Our current programming does not include a nap. It certainly does allow opportunities to engage in outside time, away from the learning blocks, but not a rest period.
Okay. So I'm definitely going to have a second round, so I'll just stick with my 2 questions, but if you can come back to me, that would be
Sure.
great. I have more questions about that, but I'll ask my second one. On one of the slides, it mentioned something about direct certified. Can you remind me again what that means?
Sure. Those are forms that families complete through the agencies that automatically qualify them for income eligible versus us filling out typically the free and reduced lunch forms that are online that schools assist families for. So it's a direct certification through for outside agencies.
Okay, perfect. All right, and come back to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Dent?
Good afternoon. Both of you are awesome. I love that you can actually look down, look up, and read. So that's a great art to have. So my question is twofold. One is I did the statistics of minority children versus the other demographics that you had on there. So of course you've been doing this for a while. So now it's going to, of course, increase because we know that African American children and Hispanic children are ones that have in the past scored traditionally low. So what, if any, processes are there being implemented as it pertains to the budget so that as we're taking on the new increase of students, that we're ensuring that we have a process in place so that we can kind of close that gap? I know everything's got an equity lens, so I'm not asking you to come up with a complete solution, but I do need to really understand what we do to try to close that gap.
Yes, thank you. So as far as our budget is concerned, we are requesting in this particular budget additional pre-K positions for our 4-year-old program so that we can move the half-day programs to a full day. So we will certainly increase the time we're able to engage with students in teaching and learning. We're also in this year's budget requesting teachers for a pre-K 3-year-old program. And so this will just be the beginning of our continuum now reaching our 3-year-olds. And so while it is, and I believe it's maybe 10 positions, I don't have those figures right in front of me, it's a start. And so we will continue to look at expanding those. We are also continuing our partnerships with our non-public private pre-Ks as to support in professional learning, making ourselves available to community initiatives, and certainly we continue to engage in our partnerships with the Judy Centers that we have now and reaching families in their homes, and with the onboarding of community schools, again, leveraging those resources to reach our families in their homes as well. And so those are things immediately that come to mind. When children come to us, and that is where we're able to then provide targeted support during the school day. And so that differentiation of learning based on the student's need in the classroom allows us to really highlight their strengths and use those to develop where they need to grow.
Thank you. And last question, you talked about a little bit earlier, and I just want to make sure I heard you. The statistics was about children with disabilities have a higher rate, a better rate on the KRL scores than children without disabilities. Is that what you said? What clarification?
Yeah, great question. Thank you so much. So based on the 2019 data, about 10% of the students enrolled in kindergarten were students that received special education services. 20% of those students were demonstrated readiness based on the KRA, as opposed to 48% of their non-disabled peers. So we do see that our students with special education needs are not able to demonstrate that level of readiness at the same level as their non-disabled peers, which is another reason why it's so vital that as we look to that pre-K3 program, why students with identified special education needs are really part of that first round of entry, so that we can continue to support families in the development of those pre-kindergarten readiness skills.
Okay, and that's my last question. I got it, but I just want to highlight one of them. So with that in mind, I know I heard you say, and I don't know which one was speaking, that the priorities were, of course, children with ESOL, English as second language, children that were high needs, right? And then also, where does the children with disabilities fall in that?
They are also part of that priority group.
Okay, so they are in the priority group.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and that priority group was set by Maryland or by the school system? Okay, all right. Thank you. That's my last question.
Ms. Omasori, did you want to ask any questions? Okay, thank you. Mr. Silkworth.
Thank you, President Tobin. Before the meeting, I read a report which said that the kindergarten readiness assessment, the KRA, also reveals a decrease in the percent of kindergartners demonstrating readiness, down from 47% in 18-19 to 40% this year, which your data show the exact same thing. Makes me wonder, if it went from 47 to 40, what's it going to be like in September? But having said that, so we know that that data is down. So what do we do with that data in terms of when that test has been given and we've identified that certain students are not ready? Is there a plan of action developed for each of those children?
So yes, once they reach us and they're in our program, we certainly are looking at personalizing their learning. And really think, Mr. Silkworth, it's also our work prior to them coming to our classrooms when they're in perhaps a family home or a private daycare provider. They are engaged in one of our Head Start programs. So continuing that partnership with those families to ensure those students are engaged and in making those resources available to them.
Yeah, I would add, Mr. Silkworth, thank you so much for that comment, that an important factor in my mind is the access to pre-kindergarten services in that 2020-2021 school year. You spoke to what it will look like in September. One of the things that I'm very hopeful for is that we have returned to offering those services, not just within AACPS, but also within our private providers and the other programs that were listed. So students that may not be in an AACPS pre-kindergarten program, but are in a certified home care program, which also probably did not operate during the pandemic with the same level of accessibility. So in addition to the hard work of every member of our AACPS amazing early childhood staff, we continue to work with our community partners to ensure that we are readying our students that are coming to enter, and our pre-K and kindergarten teachers this year have really put in the effort of understanding that this was never going to be a typical year in a kindergarten classroom, and came in prepared for the additional necessary work of figuring out where each of our students was and how do we move them along their continuum of learning.
Right. Thank you so much for that answer. And you talked a little bit about some things that we've done in the past during the summer. Do we have specific plans for this coming summer?
We absolutely do. Yes. And our early childhood office is partnering, as many offices and programs are, with our summer program coordinator to ensure that that opportunity is up and available to families so that they can make really good plans for their summer that hopefully include an amazing AACPS program.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Silkworth. Ms. Frank.
Thank you. Can I just ask, when did you start the kindergarten ready, or when did we start the kindergarten readiness assessments? What year?
I would have to check on that and get back to you.
Oh, wait.
I'm going to guess it was the 18-19 school year. That was the first year that we gave the assessment. Is that right?
It may go back as early as 2015, 2016.
Okay.
I would just be interested in seeing, year over year, how kids have done, and if there were any trends there. Is that data shared with the parents?
Yes, thank you so much for asking. In fact, our parents received their report right after we returned from winter break. So those reports have gone home. Now, please know the teachers receive that information immediately. So once it is entered into the platform, KRA platform, they're able to access that information to make instructional plans accordingly. And then, yes, parents do get a report as well.
I'm trying to remember back to the kindergarten days, and I'm like, I don't remember if I saw that or not. So I'm just checking on that. And then The only other question that I had is, as we were gearing up in my own personal family for kindergarten, we did the at the end of the prior school year, you go in and you get a day to meet the teacher and see the space with other kids, and they go outside and play on the playground. I think that would be a really great opportunity to give some of those parents some of the resources that you guys have developed. Do we do that currently, or are there any thoughts about that?
If I'm interpreting your question correctly, we often, in most schools, invite our kindergarten families in right after registration window opens. So really that spring prior to them starting, so they make a connection to who the teachers are, who the school counselor. They meet the front office staff and other key leaders, the literacy teacher, the principal, assistant principal. So they do have that opportunity to come in advance. And then of course we have the parent-teacher conferences prior to school starting as well, and then the staggered opening where they come in small groups of just 4 or 5 at a time.
Yes, and I remember all that. What I guess I'm specifically asking, the checklist that you have, that I think that would be great for parents to do over the summer with their kids to make sure that they're on track with where their kids need to be. Do we provide that? Because I don't remember that part of it.
That's a good question, and I will definitely follow up on that because it should be going out with
Yeah,
families.
definitely. And maybe it was a couple years ago. But I think if we're not, that would be a great opportunity to make sure that we're connecting with parents and that they're working over the summer, and that last summer right before they start would be a great time to really get everybody on track. All right, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate this. Early literacy and early learning is so valuable, and I love to hear everything that we're doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, this is a topic near and dear to my heart, and thank you for all of this information. So a couple of things. Obviously, as you noted, Blueprint has brought in the K3, pre-K3, pre-K4, and as you noted at the top, that prenatal to 5 it has been a time we've sort of lost, so to speak, previously when we didn't have a structure as built into the system to have 3 and 4-year-olds really in the system. So I'm curious, we've obviously had pre-K4 now for a number of years. Pre-K3 is starting up. What is the process? What are we doing to track how children are doing as they've gone through our pre-K4, for example, moving forward? Do we have data? Do we gather data? Are we going to continue to gather data? And then, if necessary, tweak accordingly. So what can you tell us about that, about how you track that, and then what the feedback loop is on that?
So thank you for the question. We definitely are very interested in doing some longitudinal study. Currently our pre-K students, and it's a matter of us connecting our software platforms. Our pre-kindergarten students may enroll at any school. So it's not necessarily their school of attendance when they go to kindergarten. And so with that, we just have to connect some dots in order to produce that information.
Yeah, I would think, obviously, all the logistical questions aside, that's an incredibly valuable thing to be able to hold on to. And similarly, just as a follow-up to that, we have these fabulous summer programs, and you mentioned some anecdotal evidence of sort of the leaps that kids are making. Again, this is a new program. Do you have plans to be able to track all of that and see what the results are?
Yes, we just finished constructing a portal that will allow us to do that. And with these programs, we are also doing pre and post assessments. So, and that can be performance-based, not necessarily paper pencil, so that we are able to see that growth in the time frame that they have spent with us in those summer months.
Great, wonderful. I'm sure we'll look forward to seeing some of that at some point. And then finally, just quickly, there was a slide, the slide readiness based on the prior experience. I don't think I saw, unless I missed something, a comparison with private pre-K. Because I believe the comparisons were with home care, Head Start, the other categories. Is that there? Did I miss it? Or is that something that we don't really look at? Do you know the slide I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
you are correct that that is not represented on the
Okay.
slide. And I do not have, I do not know for certain if I would have that information to
Right.
provide you. I don't have it this evening.
Okay.
But it's
okay.
something we can definitely make note of.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I just noted it's another category and a valuable one at that. Okay. So I'm going to offer everybody another round. We're moving along pretty quickly. So Ms. Ellis.
Thank you. First of all, thank you, Dr. Tobin, for bringing up the data. I'm very much, and I don't know what this would look like in terms of data collection, but I'm interested in the longitudinal outcomes as well, with social emotional outcomes as well as academic. And I have to tell you, I'm particularly interested in 4-year-olds spending all day in a classroom. It's wonderful that families have this opportunity who need this, and it's wonderful that these students are being prepared for kindergarten, but they're very, very young people, and now we're talking about 3-year-olds, and so I want to be sure that we're tracking the impacts this has on the social emotional development of our students. And so the one question I do have is, so if fewer than 50% of students are kindergarten ready, I guess my question is, are the standards aligned with the developmental stages of these young learners? Of course, every child is different, and there will be variations between children as to what they're ready for, not just what they're exposed to, but what they're ready for. And, you know, also there's a huge difference between a child who's turning 6 in September versus a child who's turning 6 in August, and they're all being measured on the same standard. So can you speak at all to the, and I know this is a state assessment, right?
Correct.
Right. So I guess, are we expecting, is what we're expecting appropriate for, you know, the developmental variations in our students coming in?
Great question. For our Ready for Kindergarten framework, they are certainly based on the early learning standards. And so what would be expected of a student to have the skills, behaviors, and capabilities of when entering kindergarten. So certainly it is the base of where we would like to see all students entering their kindergarten program with those knowledge and abilities. And so they work with the Ready for framework to, again, standardize that across the board of where we would say someone's demonstrating, approaching, or emerging. And based on that, it really allows us to adjust our instruction so that we're able to create opportunities for students to close those learning gaps that they may present.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I guess I'm not going to get it. I'm just wondering, like you said, we would like to see, and I guess my question is, should we be expecting to see? It sounds like if fewer than 50% of the students are there, our standards a little too great for such young people? That's, I guess, and I don't know if, you know, I don't think you're going to give me a different answer than you just did, but I just want to make sure it's understood what I was asking. Thank you.
What I would add is in short, the answer is yes. We believe that it's developmentally appropriate. It's developmentally aligned with the standards for that age coming into school.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Schallheim?
Yes, I want to go back to pre-K 4 full day. Obviously next year, the school start times will be more, developmentally aligned across the county, thankfully. So that's 8 a.m. to 2 something in the afternoon, right? So again, and all I can do is look at my own experience and go, my gosh, if my 4-year-old didn't nap during that time, it would be a disaster. So I wonder, for those children who clearly are still wanting to nap, needing to nap, how does the classroom situation respond to that need? And so if they're expected to learn but they're melting down and they're tired towards the end of the day, how do we reconcile what is still developmentally appropriate for some 4-year-olds and what they're expected to do while they're at school?
Thank you. So we really build the schedule in such a way, as you mentioned, at the end of the day, 6 hours and 25 minutes, it can be very long for some of our little ones, certainly, that we have that opportunity for our developmental centers. So students are engaged in play opportunities. And so they're at the construction center, or they're at the, they are engaging in an occupational center where they are exploring different careers. So it allows them to have that independent time, engage with their peers, but also if they need an opportunity to do something that perhaps is more quiet, then that can be addressed for that individual child. And there are times at the beginning of the year, we certainly work with some of our little ones to build their stamina for the day, and do take that in account as we work with the families and our programming.
Okay, because we know that sleep is important at every level, at every age, and is necessary to function. It's necessary for our teens to function. It's necessary for our little ones to function. And so I just hope we're not creating chronically sleep deprived children. I do have a concern about that. In terms of recess and outdoor time and unstructured playtime, can you tell me what those times are for a full day pre-K 4
Sure.
class?
Sure. So they, in our full day pre-kinder programs, they engage in structured play, and that's a break in the day where they are we're really focusing on health and wellness, and it's physical activities as well engaged in that time. Of course, recess, we like to get outside, weather permitting, so they are out and about, running around and spending time engaged in games, or having conversations with their friends and their peers. Then we also we have the opportunity for our 4-year-olds to also engage in the fine arts. So they're participating in music, physical education, visual arts. They have opportunities to go to the library and media center as well. And of course, our schools that have their EEE program, they are also participating in that class as well.
So how much recess do they get a day?
They get 30 minutes a day, and usually they get probably about some time in the morning whether they're outside it for a little bit, a stretch break, and depending on how their day is organized per the lunch schedule, the recess schedule, and certainly their cultural arts schedule, then maybe a little bit of time too in the afternoon.
Okay, so they might get like a morning recess and an afternoon recess.
It's possible.
Like some of us remember from our own elementary school days. Okay, thank you so much. Really appreciate all the information.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Dent?
So Two questions. The first one goes back to resources. I know we've talked numerous times about in this room, not necessarily with you all, about the availability of resources for um, pre-K as well as now 3-year-olds, right? So I know that there's a public-private partnership piece that goes along with that. How are we incentivizing more teachers to be able to be there, to be present, for us to be able to be prepare for the influx of children that we're going to get at the pre-K, right? Head Start programs, all that. How are we incentivizing teachers to participate in that program?
So teachers that would be part of our pre-K 3-year-old program would, and we're just beginning the development of this program, would be an Anne Arundel County teacher, an early childhood certified teacher. Certainly that is work with our human resource office to recruit and certainly hire those individuals that have the certification in that area. Very similar to how we also engage and employ teachers for our 4-year-old and our kindergarten programs.
I thought that's what's going to be the answer. And the reason I asked that question is that we're partnering with public-private. I just think it's some train of thought, right? We're partnering with a lot of the public-private partnerships that already have existing programs. And so many of those individuals aren't certified. And I'm not necessarily sure as they're going through that certification process. We're dealing with quite a few things right now to where we've established programs in the private sector, and we can't get qualified Anne Arundel County schools, public schools educators into those programs. So it does concern me that and I know we've got to do it. I don't envy any of you all who have to go through the recruitment process. I think that there just needs to be some thought process into how do we do that, right? And then the second part to that is earlier we were talking about the children with disabilities. Is there any concern, or at least it's a concern of mine, of children at that young age, they do happen to show signs of having a disability, but you don't really find out about it unless they have access to medical or health care until they get into pre-K or into kindergarten, right? And so is it optional for the set-asides that you have, those categories? Is it optional for them to participate in the program, or is it just if they do apply, then they get in? If they don't apply, there's no harm, no foul.
Yeah, right. So pre-K 3-year-old programs and pre-K 4-year-old programs are not mandatory. So if a family would decide not to participate or apply to the program, then that is their family choice.
Okay. And then my last question for you is, what incentives, or if any, are there for parents to ensure their children are participating in this program? And the reason I ask that is that I was looking up quite a few organizations in cities, Baltimore and Montgomery, that offer these programs, and they say they have a low rate of parents participate or allowing their children, probably because of some of the same things that we're sharing here this evening, from participating in these programs. How do you incentivize parents to participate in the program since it's not mandatory?
So those conversations really start early with our families who have students with disabilities. Often they start with us in their infants and toddler program, and as the student is provided services through that program, as they continue on in their individual education plan based on their needs, those are continuum of services that are discussed with the family early and often about opportunities moving forward.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Omasori, do you have any other questions?
Just one, unless the answer warrants a follow-up. So, and this may have already been asked, but we spoke, or at least somebody mentioned the equity lens during the last round of questioning, and it made me think about what context, if any, is used when collecting data, especially when it comes to students who need more help, so special needs students. My question particularly pertains to ESOL students. The exams used, the assessments used, whether that's paper and pencil or performance-based to collect data on college readiness, specifically in our literacy classes, English classes for young ones. Are you using the exact same exams or assessments for ESOL students as you would native English students?
Thank you for the question. So for our kindergarten students, we do use WIDA Access. We're finishing that up right now to assess our students of English, our English language learners, and where they are on their proficiency with language. Our 3 and 4-year-old, or currently our 4-year-old program, we do often consultation with our English language teachers in the building. Because it is not a mandatory program, we have, and I'm very proud of our English language development office, work to build a program where we have staff to support students and English language learners where there is a higher population. So we're really able to provide even more targeted support for those students. And certainly it's through observation versus a paper pencil test with our 4-year-olds.
Thank you. Mr. Silkworth.
Thank you, President Tobin. I am a bit concerned about the disparity of the numbers that you gave us between different groups of our stakeholders. And, you know, I taught language for a couple years. It was a couple. And level 1 was always the most important level because that's where the foundation for success is. And on our kindergarten programs, their future actually could very well depend upon these programs. And so, again, I'm concerned about this disparity, and it makes me wonder why. And I guess there are multiple reasons for that. A lack of awareness of resources, could that be one? I'm not quite sure. I'm wondering what are the main factors that might contribute to what I'll call the readiness gap. And again, it makes me think about connections. The more connections we make with our communities and our parents, the better off we're going to be. But then we have to maintain those connections. So on one hand, I may have thrown out a few questions out there, but I'm just kind of thinking out loud because I am concerned about the disparity.
And I think you hit on the importance of oral language development for our English language learners.
And I guess I would add the whole sort of point of now developing. We have focused on building more pre-K programs in Anne Arundel County. We've utilized the school board's budget to do that because the state doesn't pay for that, right? It's not a required enrollment period. So we have over time attempted to build more pre-K, and now Kerwin will allow us to do even more of that and add the 3-year-olds. Because what you're talking about, Mr. Silkworth, is the numbers you saw on the screen, as distressing as they are, and give us sort of this target, right, to work with these children. It's really measuring what they've done before they've gotten to us, right? It's the measure of what they have been doing or not doing before they've entered school in any of the jurisdictions in the state. And now it's our job to take them forward. So the more that we can enroll in pre-K and now the 3-year-old programs, whether it's with us or with the private providers, and using Mrs. Dent's term, incentivizing them to take on these programs. And right now, not many of them are going to take advantage of it. They're not jumping at the chance to take on these students because of the costs to paying the teachers and to going through the full certification process. And they have to do those things in order to take on those students and be awarded those funds. But going back to Mrs. Dent's question, what are some of those, what is an incentive to have more of the parents enroll their child in the early childhood programs? One of the ways we're trying to do that is create full day pre-K. Half day has been a barrier. Many families don't, right? Mom or dad, the adult has to go off to work, and they don't have time to split their day to pick the child up or drop them off for half day. So by adding pre-K and adding it, making it full day is much more attractive to families enrolling their child in school. Many times they would go to private providers because they could get a full day of schooling, babysitting, whatever it might be, and because we had half-day programs. We're trying to convert those 17 more of those. We will convert if this budget moves through, approved by this board on Wednesday, and then goes through the budget process. We'll have 17 more full-day pre-K programs in the county, which becomes an incentive for parents to bring their children in.
How many do you have now?
Full-
Full
Of the half-day or full-day programs?
of the half-day programs.
I don't,
Okay.
I'll have to get you those numbers. I
But
can get you those
17 is
numbers.
not close to what you need, is what I think of.
Oh, no, we still
It's-
have more to go.
Yeah.
But 17 is a huge leap to going from half-day to full-day.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Then you're done, Mr. Sulkworth. Ms. Frank?
I probably think a little differently than a couple other folks on the board. I certainly support making sure that students are kindergarten ready, and I certainly support early literacy efforts. I don't necessarily believe fundamentally that the answer to that problem is more time. Ms. Schellheim brought up the napping issue. I know that private providers, the ones that I'm familiar with, they do provide naps. So I am concerned that as we try to address this problem with more time in school, that A, we do it in a developmentally appropriate manner, and B, that we're actually tracking to see if these measures that we take do provide the outcomes that we're trying to acquire. So for instance, if we only started the kindergarten readiness assessment in 15 and 16, we didn't have this data when kindergarten went to full day. And are we able to measure how effective that was? And are we trying to model any success from that to the full day preschool numbers? And I don't necessarily know that we're going to have that data. And I would hope that as we move forward, that we're at least encapsulating what we're doing next. More of a statement than a question. When I asked about the kindergarten readiness assessment, that was kind of where I was thinking. So I guess the only question I have is, do you have any relative data to before and after we expanded kindergarten? And do you use any of that data as a model?
I'd have to check on that data.
All right. Other than that, I am excited by some of the offerings that you guys have, and I do appreciate you coming out tonight. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, a couple of additional things for me. First of all, I just want to give a shout out to the infants and toddlers program. My own daughter had some speech therapy through them, and they were extraordinary. And it is such an incredible resource in this county, and they have such an incredible reputation. And so I just want to offer my thanks now, close on 2 decades later, but so again, I think part of the thinking back to the blueprint part of this is obviously to start early for all the reasons we've talked about, that children are ready by the time they get to kindergarten with the things that will support their success. But presumably that also, and I think Ms. Dent was getting at this as well, supports earlier interventions when necessary, right? So what are we, just, I'd like to know a little more about what we're doing around that. You know, how are things being picked up? What's the plan? You know, this will change the timeline to some extent, right? Because we will see a lot of children sooner. So where are we with that, or how are we thinking about that now?
So if I'm going to try and answer your question, if I think I understand it. So we, we are identifying students in that what now Blueprint calls the tiers based on family income. And so really immediately inviting those students into our program, into the school setting for that early intervention opportunity in and of itself. And with the priority also being given to our students with special education needs and our English learners. So I think that's a start. I know I'm not answering your question completely.
I was very unclear. I'm sorry. What I was getting at was the children who come that we're not aware that there's, whether it's a reading issue or a developmental issue of some sort. So obviously, if we're seeing them at pre-K 3, pre-K 4, we're going to have an opportunity, not the children who have already been identified as having a particular issue, but we're going to be seeing it sooner. So I'm just wondering, what the thinking is around sort of how quickly we
Thank you
act
for
on
that clarification. So Mrs. Sanuk is engaged in the work of this policy area in collaboration with our special education team. And so you'll see in our budget, we do have a request for additional special educators, because as we increase our seats and the students we will be able to see each and every day, we certainly may find that there will be students who are in need of an individual education plan. And so therefore, the instructor support is going to be needed from that co-teacher, perhaps, or if it depending on their learning continuum.
Yes.
I would just add that, I think to your point, the earlier we see students, the earlier we're able to provide good instruction, which includes differentiation and the need for that opportunity for trajectory adjustment, right? And one of the great things is that when we see students at a younger age, that opportunity for support is probably less severe, right?
Exactly.
And the opportunity for our educators to work with students regularly in an ideal situation, to the data conversation we're having, will hopefully show us over the course of time as we look at a student's trajectory from pre-K 4 and forward, that those gaps that may have existed if they didn't come in until a kindergarten program no longer exist, right? Or at least are able to be adjusted. So I think your point is really well made, that good data earlier always allows for good decision making earlier.
Yes. And thank you for making clear what my brain was not capable of doing tonight. So, and just to add, I mean, I've evaluated a lot of public charter programs in DC, and when DC went to the pre-K 3 and 4, they saw a lot of changes, and they saw, again, the severity of the issues being reduced, and in fact, in some cases, simply alleviated because the intervention was so early. So one last quick thing. I think it's clear from a lot of research and data that's out there that on the whole, one of the most important things that we can give our children early on is, broadly speaking, exposure. I mean, not just there's the reading, there are the particulars, but there's simply, that knowledge, that experiential side of this. And what you've described in the day includes a lot of that. But I'm curious about our pre-K 3 and pre as it gets started in our pre-K 4. Are there opportunities for like little field trips and things out to see the museums or all the other things that we have? Can you speak to that?
Certainly. So we engage in as many field experiences as we possibly can. Certainly, it is a variety of activities, and it is allowing students to get out into the real world and the application of learning and in those authentic experiences. We also maximize things we have right here, in our backyard, Arlington Echo, with our environmental literacy program. Certainly that in partnership with the public library and trips to see them. So absolutely. And now with our virtual connection to many, I mean, we almost can touch anything in that manner that really can allow the students to travel in a virtual way with an experience that they might not have been able to previously.
Well, that is wonderful to hear. I don't think we have any, we've done several rounds. Oh, Ms. Dent?
I know. And just one quick question. I think I hear everybody's question that is probably, at least mine is unanswered about the curriculum. So I know that we're talking about how many naps they're going to have, how intense it is. So as they are developing a curriculum for 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, will that something that we'll have an opportunity to at least look in, weigh in on, or is there something that is just operationally and we have zero to do with that? That's probably a question for Dr. Arlotto.
Well, the pre-K curriculum exists, so the standards are already there from the state, and the pre-K curriculum already exists, and you're glad to review it. It's online. We absolutely can get you access to it.
What, when you go from half day to full day, that's already exists as well?
Mhm. We
Okay.
have full-day programs now.
Awesome sauce. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's it. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Greatly
Happy
appreciate it.
Valentine's Day.
Yes, we much appreciate your spending Valentine's. I know, it's tonight. And we know that there's no one else you'd rather spend it with than us, right? So, good night, everyone, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.